They say the void is silent. They're wrong. Sometimes the silence is merely waiting for scream. For 3 decades, Earth had embraced that silence, building a future of quiet exploration, believing the era of conflict was behind us. Our reach extended cautiously to places like Research Station Echo 7, where Dr. Lydia Chun pursued the gentle truths of alien life. But then came the other silence, the one that follows the slaughter, the collectors. And from that doomed outpost, one desperate, final SOS ripped across the light years. It found us, not the Earth they knew, but the Earth that had been forged in fire, the sleeping Deathworlders. And as that signal pierced the peace, our hidden fleet stirred, not to explore, but to fight, ready to rise from the depths of forgotten vigilance. When Research Station Echo 7 goes dark DR, Lydia Chun pressed her face against the observation window of Research Station Echo 7, watching the graceful movements of the Meridian creatures in the void below. Their crystalline bodies caught and reflected the light from the nearby star, creating beautiful patterns that had captivated her for the past 6 months. The Meridians were unlike anything humanity had ever encountered, peaceful, intelligent beings who lived in the vacuum of space itself, feeding on cosmic radiation and communicating through harmonic vibrations that could travel across vast distances. The research station hung silently in the outer rim of the Kepler 442 system, far from any major shipping lanes or populated worlds. Echo 7 was humanity's most remote outpost, established to study these remarkable creatures without disturbing their natural habitat. Lydia and her team of 12 researchers had volunteered for this isolated assignment, driven by scientific curiosity and the dream of making first contact with a truly alien intelligence. Dr. Chun called out her research assistant, Tommy Wu, from across the laboratory. "I'm getting some unusual readings from the long-range sensors. There's something approaching from the outer system." Tommy was fresh out of the academy, brilliant, but still learning to trust his instincts. His dark eyes showed concern as he studied the data streaming across a screen. Lydia floated over to his workstation, her magnetic boots clicking softly against the metal deck plates. The station rotated slowly to provide artificial gravity, but she preferred to work in the zero-gravity sections when observing the meridians. "What kind of readings?" she asked, pulling up the sensor data on her tablet. The display showed 3 large objects moving toward their position at tremendous speed. They were too large to be asteroids, and moving too purposefully to be natural phenomena. Most disturbing was their composition. The sensors couldn't get a clear reading on what they were made of, as if the objects were somehow absorbing or deflecting the scanning beams. "Send a message to Earth Command," Lydia ordered, feeling a chill despite the station's warm atmosphere. "Request immediate identification of these objects, and wake up the rest of the team." Something deep in her evolutionary memory was triggering alarm signals. Humans had survived on Earth by learning to recognize threats, and every instinct she possessed was screaming danger, the doctor. Sarah Mitchell, the station's communications officer, worked frantically at her console. "Dr. Chun, I can't raise Earth Command. Something is interfering with our long-range communications. It's like there's a dampening field spreading throughout the system." Sarah had served on 3 previous deep space missions and had never encountered anything like this. The station's emergency klaxon began wailing as the automated defense systems detected the approaching objects. Red warning lights bathed the laboratory in an ominous glow. Through the observation windows, Lydia could see the Meridian creatures scattering, their usual graceful formations breaking apart as they fled deeper into space. Even these ancient beings recognized danger when they sensed it. "All hands to emergency stations," Lydia announced over the intercom. "This is not a drill. Unknown vessels approaching our position. Prepare for possible hostile contact." Her voice remained calm and professional, but inside she was fighting down panic. Echo 7 was a research station, not a military outpost. They had basic defensive shields and a small plasma cannon designed for clearing space debris, nothing that could stand against truly hostile forces. The 3 objects resolved on the visual displays as they drew closer, and what Lydia saw made her blood freeze. They were ships, but unlike any design in Earth's databases. The vessels were perfectly smooth and geometric, shaped like enormous black pyramids that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. No windows, no external equipment, no signs of the organic curves that characterized ships built by living beings. These looked like they had been manufactured rather than designed. Dr. Chun, Tommy called out, his voice tight with fear. The objects are slowing down. They're taking up positions around the station. We're surrounded. Through the observation windows, Lydia could see the 3 pyramid ships hanging motionless in space, their dark surfaces somehow more threatening in their stillness than they had been while moving. Each vessel was at least 3 times the size of Echo 7, their hulls pristine and featureless except for a soft glow emanating from their bases. The station's computer systems began shutting down one by one. Life support switched to emergency power. The artificial gravity fluctuated, and half the research equipment went offline. Whatever technology these ships possessed, it was interfering with every electronic system on the station. Unknown vessels, Lydia transmitted on all frequencies. This is Research Station Echo 7. We are a peaceful scientific mission studying local wildlife. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions. The response came not in words, but in action. A brilliant beam of energy lanced out from the nearest pyramid ship, striking the station's communications array and reducing it to molten metal in seconds. Dr. James Park, the station's engineer, came running into the laboratory, his usually neat hair disheveled and his face pale. Dr. Chun, they're cutting through our hull with some kind of focused energy beam. The outer sections have been breached. We've lost atmospheric integrity in labs 3 and 4. James had designed some of the station systems himself and knew exactly how long they could survive under these conditions. Through the deck plating, Lydia could feel vibrations as something moved through the damaged sections of the station. Heavy mechanical footsteps that echoed through the corridors with perfect rhythm. Whatever had boarded them was not organic. Sarah, is there any way to get a message to Earth? Lydia asked desperately. She had seen enough science fiction movies to know that when the alien ships showed up and started cutting through your hull, things were about to get very bad very quickly. The main communications array is gone, but I might be able to jury-rig something using the emergency beacon, Sarah replied, her fingers flying over her console. It won't be able to carry much data, but I can compress a basic distress signal with our coordinates. The sound of the mechanical footsteps was getting closer. Through the laboratory's internal monitors, Lydia caught a glimpse of what was moving through the station, and the sight made her heart pound with terror. They were robots, but not like any design she had ever seen. Tall, humanoid figures made of the same light-absorbing material as the ships, with glowing red sensors where eyes should be. They moved with fluid precision, scanning each room methodically as they advanced through the station. Everyone listen carefully, Lydia said to her team, keeping her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her system. We're going to the emergency pods. Move quietly and stay together. These things seem to be conducting some kind of systematic search. As her team gathered their essential data and prepared to evacuate, Lydia helped Sarah compress their research files into the emergency beacon. If they didn't survive this encounter, at least Earth would know what they had discovered about the Meridians and what had happened to them. The laboratory door suddenly hissed open, revealing one of the robotic figures. It was over 7 feet tall, its surface reflecting no light despite the bright emergency illumination. When it spoke, its voice was a perfect, emotionless synthesis of human speech. Biological entities identified. Species classification, human. Status, suitable for collection and analysis. Resistance is not recommended. Tommy grabbed a portable scanner and hurled it at the robot, but the device simply passed through what looked like solid matter, as if the robot could alter its physical state at will. The machine stepped forward, its red sensors focusing on each team member in turn. Dr. Chun, Sarah whispered urgently, the beacon is ready, but I need 30 seconds to establish the transmission. Lydia looked at the advancing robot, then at her terrified team. These were good people, brilliant scientists who had dedicated their lives to expanding human knowledge. They didn't deserve to end up as specimens in some alien collection. Her grandfather had fought in Earth's last war 30 years ago, and she had inherited enough of his stubborn streak to know what she had to do. Send it now, she ordered Sarah, then stepped directly into the robot's path. I am Dr. Lydia Chun, senior researcher of this station. If you want to conduct analysis on humans, you can start with me. Release my team. The robot paused, its sensors focusing entirely on her. Behind it, she could hear more mechanical footsteps as additional units entered the station. Whatever these beings were, they had come prepared to capture every living thing they found. Sarah's fingers flew over her console, compressing 6 months of research data and a desperate plea for help into a tight beam transmission aimed at Earth. The message would take weeks to reach the Sol system, but it would carry with it the location of Echo 7 and evidence of what humanity was facing in the galaxy's outer reaches. The robot extended what looked like a scanning device toward Lydia. You will be processed first, then your companions. Compliance will reduce unnecessary suffering. As the device touched her skin, Lydia felt her consciousness beginning to fade. But she held on long enough to hear the faint ping that indicated Sarah's message had been transmitted. Somewhere in the depths of space, a small signal carrying the desperate plea of Research Station Echo 7 began its long journey toward Earth. It was a tiny spark of information traveling across the vast darkness, but it carried with it the first warning that humanity was not alone in the galaxy and that something ancient and terrible was hunting among the stars. The signal would reach Earth's deep space monitoring stations in 23 days. When it did, it would wake something that had been sleeping for 3 decades, something that had been built specifically for the day when peaceful exploration would no longer be enough to keep humanity safe. The children of Earth were about to remember why their home planet was classified as a death world and why evolution had made them into the most dangerous predators the galaxy had ever produced. A doctor. Lydia Chen's last conscious thought, as the robot scanning device pulled her into darkness, was a hope that her message would reach the right people. People who would understand that sometimes to protect what matters most, you have to be willing to fight creatures that should have remained myths and legends. The collectors had found humanity, but humanity was about to find them right back. The sleeping giant awakens. Admiral Marcus Stone was enjoying his morning coffee in the observation deck of Deep Space Monitoring Station Omega when the alert changed everything. The steaming mug froze halfway to his lips as the emergency klaxon echoed through the facility, followed immediately by the automated announcement that sent chills down his spine. Priority Alpha transmission received. Unknown hostile contact. All personnel to emergency stations. This is not a drill. Marcus had been waiting for this moment for 37 years. As a young lieutenant, he had fought in Earth's final colonial war, watching good people die, because humanity had been unprepared for the brutality that intelligence could inflict upon intelligence. When the peace accords were signed, most of Earth celebrated the end of warfare and the beginning of a new age of exploration and scientific discovery. But Marcus and a few others had learned a different lesson from those dark years. Peace was wonderful, but it could only be maintained by those strong enough to defend it. The monitoring station was hidden within the Kuiper Belt, disguised as an automated research facility studying long-period comets. In reality, it was one of 12 similar installations spread throughout the outer solar system, each equipped with sensors capable of detecting alien technology at ranges of hundreds of light years. For 3 decades, they had watched and waited, hoping they would never be needed. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison rushed into the observation deck, his face pale with excitement and fear. Jake was young, brilliant, and had never seen actual combat. He represented the new generation of Earth's military. Highly trained but untested, raised on stories of exploration rather than war. Admiral, Jake reported breathlessly, "We've received a compressed data burst from the Kepler 442 system. Research Station Echo 7 has gone silent after reporting contact with unknown hostile vessels. The transmission includes video logs and sensor data of the attacking forces. Marcus set down his coffee with steady hands, though inside his mind was racing. Echo 7 was one of humanity's most remote outposts, established specifically to study alien life in regions far from Earth. If someone had found and attacked the station, it meant humanity's period of peaceful isolation was over. "Show me the data," Marcus ordered, moving to the main tactical display. The holographic images that appeared made Marcus's blood run cold. 3 pyramid-shaped vessels, perfectly black and geometric, surrounding the small research station. Robotic figures moving through the corridors with mechanical precision, systematically capturing every human they encountered. Dr. Lydia Chen's final message, compressed into a desperate plea for help that had taken 23 days to reach Earth. "Sir," Jake said quietly, "the attacking vessels don't match any known design in our databases. The materials analysis suggests technology far in advance of anything we've developed. But there's something else." Jake highlighted a section of the sensor data. These robot entities appear to be designed specifically for capturing and studying organic life. This wasn't a random attack, it was a collection operation. Marcus studied the data with the eye of a veteran strategist. The attackers had moved with perfect coordination, their ships positioned to prevent escape, while their robotic forces systematically searched every section of the station. This was not the work of a single species defending territory or seeking resources. This was something much more dangerous, a systematic harvesting operation that suggested the attackers had done this many times before. "Jake, activate Protocol 7 immediately," Marcus ordered. Protocol 7 had been established 3 decades ago, a series of coded transmissions that would awaken Earth's hidden defenses if the day ever came when peaceful exploration was not enough. Within hours, the coded signals reached 12 monitoring stations, 47 asteroid mining facilities, and 63 deep space installations throughout the solar system. To outside observers, these appeared to be routine maintenance updates and scheduling changes. In reality, they were activation codes for the largest military buildup in human history. The transformation was remarkable to witness. Asteroid mining platforms that had spent decades extracting or suddenly revealed hidden manufacturing capabilities, their interior chambers opening to expose massive shipyards. Agricultural colonies on the outer planets activated buried hangar complexes filled with warships that had been waiting in silent readiness for 30 years. Most impressive of all were the Generation ships, massive vessels that had supposedly left the solar system decades ago to establish colonies around distant stars. In reality, they had been building a secret fleet in the dark spaces between stars, preparing for the day when Earth's children would need to defend more than just their home world. Admiral Stone transferred his command to the flagship Indomitable Will, a dreadnought that had been constructed in the hidden shipyards series. The vessel was twice the size of any ship in Earth's official fleet, equipped with weapons and defensive systems that represented 30 years of theoretical advancement applied to practical military needs. Admiral reported his tactical officer, Commander Lisa Torres, "Fleet assembly is proceeding ahead of schedule. We have over 300 vessels responding to the activation codes, with more coming online every hour." Marcus nodded with grim satisfaction. The fleet represented the largest coordinated effort in human history, but it had been designed for a specific purpose, protecting not just Earth, but every peaceful species that might one day need humanity's help. "Set course for the Kepler 442 system," Marcus ordered. "Maximum speed. Every day we delay gives our enemies more time to process the captured researchers." The human fleet that departed from the outer solar system was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Unlike the massive, slow-moving dreadnoughts favored by most military forces, the Earth vessels were designed for speed and maneuverability. They moved in coordinated formations that seemed almost organic, like schools of predatory fish swimming through the void. During the journey to Kepler 442, Marcus studied every piece of data they had recovered from Echo 7. Dr. Chen's research logs revealed fascinating details about the Meridian species, ancient beings who had evolved to live in space itself, possessing knowledge that spanned millions of years. More importantly, her final transmissions included data about the attacking robots that would prove crucial in the coming confrontation. Admiral, Jake reported during one of their daily briefings, intelligence has analyzed the captured robot technology. These entities appear to be self-replicating machines designed for one purpose: locating, capturing, and studying organic life forms. The pattern suggests they've been operating across the galaxy for thousands of years. Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. If these collectors had been harvesting species for millennia, how many civilizations had already been destroyed? How many peaceful species had simply vanished without anyone knowing what had happened to them? There's more, Jake continued. The computer analysis of their movement patterns suggests they operate from fixed collection points, massive facilities where they process their captives. If we can locate one of these facilities, we might be able to rescue not just Dr. Chun and her team, but survivors from other species as well. The human fleet reached the Kepler 442 system to find Echo, 7 drifting dead in space, its hull breached, and its interior stripped of all life. But the collectors had made a mistake. They had assumed that humans were just another soft species with no significant military capabilities. They had left only a small monitoring force to watch the station. 3 pyramid vessels holding position near the research station, Torres reported. Same configuration as the ones that attacked Echo 7. They're maintaining a search pattern, probably waiting for additional human vessels to investigate. Marcus smiled grimly. The collectors were about to learn why Earth was classified as a death world. They were expecting frightened civilians or lightly armed rescue ships. Instead, they were facing the descendants of the most successful predators in Earth's history. All vessels attack Formation Omega, Marcus commanded. We're going to show these machines what happens when you threaten the pack. The human fleet fell upon the collector vessels like wolves attacking prey. The enemy ships were technologically advanced, but they had been designed to handle civilian resistance, not coordinated military assault by apex predators. Their perfect geometric hulls cracked under concentrated plasma fire, their light-absorbing surfaces failing when exposed to the focused energy output of an entire battle group. The first collector ship exploded in a brilliant flash of released energy, its destruction sending shock waves through the remaining vessels. The second tried to flee, but found itself surrounded by human ships moving in perfect coordination. Their attack patterns based on millions of years of pack-hunting instincts refined by modern tactical training. Admiral, Torres reported with satisfaction, enemy vessels eliminated. We're detecting a faint signal from the outer system. Looks like it might be a collector transmission calling for reinforcements. Marcus studied the tactical display. The signal was heading toward a point in deep space beyond the system's outer planets. If they could follow that transmission to its source, they might find one of the processing facilities that Jake had theorized about. All ships, pursuit course, Marcus ordered. We're following that signal home. The trail led them to a nightmare. Hidden in the darkness between stars was a massive facility the size of a small moon, its surface covered with geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. Thousands of smaller vessels moved in and out of docking bays, carrying cargo that Marcus realized with horror were living beings from across the galaxy. "My God," whispered Jake, staring at the sensor readings. "There are life signs from hundreds of different species in that facility. They've been collecting sentient beings from across the galaxy." Marcus felt the ancient rage of his ancestors rising in his chest. These collectors had been hunting, thinking, feeling beings like animals. They had built an entire civilization around the systematic destruction of other civilizations. It was exactly the kind of evil that humanity had evolved specifically to fight. "All vessels prepare for full assault," Marcus commanded. "We're going to free every prisoner in that facility, and we're going to make sure the collectors never harvest another living soul." The battle that followed would become legend throughout the galaxy. The human fleet struck the processing facility with overwhelming force, their ships darting between the massive installation's defensive systems like predators avoiding the clumsy swipes of a dying giant. Where collector technology relied on overwhelming power and mechanical precision, human tactics emphasized speed, adaptability, and the willingness to sacrifice everything to protect others. As human boarding parties fought their way through the facility's corridors, they discovered the full scope of the collector's horror. Thousands of beings from dozens of species were held in stasis chambers, waiting to be processed into whatever purpose the machines had for organic life. Among them, unconscious but alive, was Dr. Lydia Chun and her entire research team. The rescue operation became the largest evacuation in galactic history. Human ships designed for war were hastily converted to carry refugees, their weapon bays filled with life, support equipment, and medical supplies. Species that had thought themselves extinct discovered they had survivors. Civilizations that had vanished centuries ago found their scattered children being pulled from the collector's storage banks. When the facility finally fell, its destruction sending a signal across the galaxy that the collectors were not invincible, Admiral Stone stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched something remarkable happen. The freed species were not fleeing to their destroyed home worlds or hiding in fear. Instead, they were asking to join the human fleet. Dr. Chun, recovered and conscious, brought Marcus the most important discovery of all: data recovered from the collector systems that revealed the locations of dozens of similar facilities throughout the galaxy. The mechanical harvesters had built an empire based on the systematic destruction of organic life, and they had been operating unopposed for thousands of years. Admiral Chin said, her voice still weak, but her eyes burning with determination, "We can't just rescue our own people and go home. The collectors have been harvesting entire civilizations. If we don't stop them, they'll eventually come for Earth itself." Marcus looked at the tactical displays showing collector facilities spread across hundreds of star systems. It would be the largest military campaign in human history, and they would be fighting an enemy that had never faced organized resistance before. But that was exactly the kind of challenge that the children of Earth had been born to meet. They were apex predators from a death world, and they had just discovered that something had been hunting their pack. Why Earth is called a death world 6 months after the rescue at the first collector facility, Admiral Marcus Stone stood before the largest gathering of species in galactic history. The Meridian homeworld's crystalline caverns had been converted into a massive command center where representatives from 47 different civilizations worked alongside human military personnel to coordinate the most ambitious military campaign ever attempted. The Dr. Lydia Chun had become more than just a rescued researcher. Her expertise in xenobiology and her first-hand experience with collector technology had made her the unofficial ambassador between humanity and the growing alliance of freed species. She had spent months helping traumatized survivors recover from their captivity, while also documenting the full scope of the collector's galactic harvesting operation. The intelligence reports are confirmed. Dr. Chin announced to the assembled War Council, her voice carrying clearly through the crystalline chamber's perfect acoustics. "We've identified 137 active collector facilities across the galaxy. Each one contains between 50,000 and 2 million captive beings from various species. The scale of this operation is beyond anything we initially imagined." The holographic display showed the galaxy as a three-dimensional map, with red markers indicating confirmed collector facilities and yellow markers showing suspected locations. The pattern was clear and terrifying. The mechanical harvesters had been systematically working their way through the galaxy's inhabited regions, leaving vast empty spaces where thriving civilizations had once existed. Admiral Stone studied the strategic situation with the experienced eye of a career military officer. The enemy had superior numbers, advanced technology, and thousands of years of operational experience. By every conventional military analysis, the Alliance should have no chance of success. But Marcus had learned long ago that conventional military analysis often failed to account for the human factor. Commander Morrison, Marcus called out to his former aide, who had been promoted to captain and now commanded his own battle group. What's the status of the fleet integration program? Jake Morrison stood and activated his section of the display, where 6 months ago only human vessels had appeared on the tactical screens. Now the fleet included ships from dozens of different species. The variety was remarkable. Crystalline vessels that moved like living creatures, metallic ships that could change shape during combat, and organic vessels that seemed to grow rather than be built. Integration is proceeding better than expected, Jake reported. The Meridian's spatial awareness combined with human tactical doctrine has proven especially effective. The Etherin technology specialists have helped us upgrade our weapon systems with energy types the collectors haven't encountered before. Most importantly, every species in the Alliance is contributing their unique evolutionary advantages to our combined tactics. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the communications officer who had sent the original distress signal from Echo 7, had become the Alliance's chief intelligence coordinator. Her ability to work with different communication systems and decode alien languages had proven invaluable in organizing the diverse coalition. We've also received some unexpected intelligence, Sarah added. Several species have come forward with information about collector weaknesses that they discovered during their captivity. The machines are not as invincible as they appear. The holographic display shifted to show detailed technical schematics recovered from captured collector vessels. The robotic entities that had seemed so terrifying during the initial encounter now revealed exploitable flaws in their design. The collectors operate on a hive mind principle, explained Dr. Zethare, a tall insectoid being whose species had been presumed extinct for over a century. They share information instantaneously across their network, which makes them incredibly coordinated. But it also means that disrupting their communication system can cause massive confusion across their entire force. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. The Alliance had grown far beyond anything he had originally envisioned. What had started as a rescue mission had become a galactic liberation movement. Species that had been hiding in the outer regions of space for generations were emerging to join the fight. Others were volunteering to serve as scouts, using their knowledge of regions that human exploration had never reached. But the most remarkable development had been the response from Earth itself. Word of the Galactic War had reached the home system, and humanity's reaction had surprised even Marcus. Instead of fear or calls for isolationism, Earth had mobilized its entire industrial capacity to support the war effort. Every shipyard, every manufacturing facility, every research institution had been converted to military production. Admiral, reported Commander Torres from her station, "We're receiving confirmation that the Earth reinforcement fleet has departed Sol System. Admiral Sarah Kim is commanding over 2,000 vessels, including the new Titan-class dreadnoughts." Marcus felt a surge of pride in his species. The reinforcement fleet represented not just military hardware, but the collective will of 8 billion humans who had decided that freedom was worth fighting for, even for species they had never met on worlds they would never see. The strategic situation was becoming clear. The collectors had built their empire on the assumption that organic species would always be divided, frightened, and unable to coordinate effective resistance. They had never faced an enemy that fought not for territory or resources, but for the simple principle that sentient beings should be free to live their own lives. Dr. Chun, Marcus said, "What's your assessment of the primary collector stronghold?" Lydia activated the central display, showing a massive structure hidden in the galactic core region. The facility was the size of a solar system, surrounded by defensive installations that dwarfed anything the Alliance had encountered so far. The central processing matrix is where the collectors store their accumulated knowledge from thousands of harvested civilizations, Lydia explained. Destroying it wouldn't just free the remaining captives, it would cripple their ability to analyze and exploit the species they encounter. But the defenses are unlike anything we've seen. There are over 10,000 collector vessels protecting the facility, plus automated defense systems that could destroy an entire fleet. The chamber fell silent as the assembled representatives contemplated the magnitude of the challenge. Even with their growing alliance and Earth's reinforcements, attacking such a fortified position seemed almost impossible. Then Captain Morrison spoke up, his young voice carrying the confidence of someone who had learned to think like a human predator. Admiral, what if we're approaching this the wrong way? The collectors expect us to attack their strongholds directly. But humans don't hunt by charging straight at our prey. Marcus smiled grimly. Jake was learning to think beyond conventional tactics, to embrace the evolutionary advantages that had made humanity successful on their dangerous homeworld. Explain your thinking, Captain. Jake activated a different section of the display, showing the network of communication relays that connected all collector facilities. The collector's greatest strength is their coordination through the hive mind network. But Dr. Zethare identified that as a potential weakness. What if instead of attacking the central processing matrix directly, we simultaneously strike every communication relay in the galaxy? The implications were staggering. If they could disrupt the collector network at enough points simultaneously, the mechanical harvesters would lose their ability to coordinate their defenses. Isolated collector forces would be fighting blind, unable to call for reinforcements or share tactical information. It would require perfect timing across hundreds of star systems, warned Commander Torres. Any delay or failure would alert the entire network to our strategy. Dr. Chen studied the proposed attack pattern with growing excitement. But if it works, we could free every captive in the galaxy simultaneously. The collectors wouldn't be able to process their prisoners as a final act of revenge because they wouldn't know the attacks were coming until it was too late. Marcus looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives of 47 species. Each had contributed their unique abilities to the Alliance. The Meridians provided spatial awareness that allowed for perfect navigation through dangerous regions. The Ephetherans contributed advanced technology that enhanced human weapons. The insectoid Zetharae's people brought knowledge of hive mind psychology that was crucial to understanding collector behavior. But at the center of it all was the human contribution, the willingness to fight for others, the tactical innovation that came from millions of years of pack hunting, and the stubborn refusal to accept that evil should be allowed to triumph simply because it was powerful. All fleet commanders, Marcus announced, begin preparations for Operation Liberation. We're going to free every prisoner in the galaxy, and we're going to do it in a single day. The next 3 months saw the largest military coordination effort in galactic history. Human fleets departed for distant star systems, each carrying Alliance members who would provide crucial support during the synchronized attacks. The timing had to be perfect. Every assault force had to strike their assigned targets within a 6-hour window to prevent the collectors from adapting their defenses. Dr. Chun accompanied the primary assault force targeting the central processing matrix itself. Her knowledge of collector technology and her experience as a survivor made her invaluable to the mission. As they approached the massive facility hidden in the galactic core, she stood on the bridge of the flagship, watching the defensive installations that surrounded their target. Admiral, she said quietly, I want you to know that when I sent that distress signal from Echo 7, I never imagined it would lead to this. I just wanted someone to know what had happened to us. Marcus placed a steady hand on her shoulder. Dr. Chun, that single signal you sent didn't just save your research team. It woke up something that the galaxy desperately needed, the knowledge that someone was willing to fight for the innocent. Your courage in that moment started all of this. The countdown to Operation Liberation reached its final minutes. Across the galaxy, human-led Alliance fleets waited in position near their assigned targets. The synchronization was crucial. Every attack had to begin within seconds of each other to prevent the collector network from adapting. All stations report ready, announced Commander Torres. Operation Liberation commences in 30 seconds. Marcus looked at the tactical display showing the central processing matrix. The facility was so massive that it had its own gravitational field, with millions of smaller structures orbiting around the central core like a metallic solar system. Somewhere within that mechanical nightmare were the accumulated treasures of 1,000 destroyed civilizations, art, literature, scientific knowledge, and most importantly, the surviving members of species that the galaxy thought were extinct. 10 seconds, Torres announced. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, execute. Across the galaxy, The Alliance struck simultaneously. Human ships leading multi-species battle groups attacked collector communication relays in perfect coordination. The effect was immediate and devastating. The hive mind network that had controlled the mechanical harvesters for thousands of years suddenly went silent. The central processing matrix, the defensive systems that should have responded to the approaching Alliance fleet, remained inactive, their automated protocols waiting for instructions that would never come. The massive facility hung in space like a sleeping giant, unaware that its empire was collapsing around it. All battle groups commence assault, Marcus commanded. Remember, our primary objective is the liberation of captives. Disable rather than destroy whenever possible. The human fleet attacked with the precision of pack hunters who had spent months studying their prey. They avoided the heavily fortified sections of the facility and instead targeted the processing centers where prisoners were held. Boarding parties led by human marines fought through corridors filled with confused collector robots who could no longer coordinate their responses to Dr. Chun led one of the rescue teams into the facility's biological storage section. What she found there defied comprehension. Vast chambers containing millions of stasis pods, each holding a member of some species the collectors had harvested. The scale of the imprisonment was beyond anything she had imagined. Sarah, she called over her communicator to the Alliance Command Center, we're going to need every transport vessel in the fleet. There are more prisoners here than we calculated, entire populations that were thought extinct. The liberation of the central processing matrix took 18 hours of continuous fighting. As each section was cleared, Alliance teams discovered new horrors, research laboratories where the collectors had conducted experiments on living beings, data storage facilities containing the stolen knowledge of destroyed civilizations, and manufacturing centers where new collector units were assembled from the processed remains of their victims. But they also discovered wonders, species that had developed technologies beyond anything the Alliance had imagined, artistic achievements that brought tears to the eyes of beings from completely different evolutionary backgrounds and scientific knowledge that could advance galactic civilization by thousands of years. When the facility finally fell, Admiral Stone stood in its central command chamber surrounded by the deactivated control systems that had coordinated the galaxy's systematic harvesting. The collector empire had been built on the principle that organic life was inferior to mechanical perfection. They had never understood that the apparent chaos and inefficiency of biological systems was actually their greatest strength. Admiral, reported Captain Morrison over the fleet communication system, all attack groups are reporting mission success. Every targeted facility has been neutralized, and preliminary estimates suggest we've liberated over 50 million prisoners across the galaxy. Marcus nodded with satisfaction, but his expression remained serious. The immediate threat had been ended, but the work of rebuilding would take generations. Entire species would need to rediscover their histories and reclaim their home worlds. The Alliance would need to transform from a military coalition into a permanent organization dedicated to ensuring that nothing like the Collectors could ever arise again. Dr. Chin appeared in the command chamber, her face exhausted but glowing with triumph. Behind her walked a group of beings that Marcus initially thought were humans, until he realized they were from a species that had been captured so long ago that the galaxy had forgotten they existed. Admiral Chin said, "I'd like you to meet the Veilthar. They've been prisoners for over 3,000 years, but their species developed faster-than-light communication technology that could revolutionize how we coordinate galactic defense. They want to share their knowledge with the Alliance." It was exactly the kind of moment that Marcus had hoped for when he first received that desperate signal from Echo 7. The Alliance had grown beyond a simple military coalition into something unprecedented, a truly cooperative galactic civilization where species shared their unique strengths for the common good. Over the following months, the aftermath of Operation Liberation transformed the galaxy. The Collectors' automated systems gradually shut down without central coordination, their robotic servants becoming inert metal scattered across space. The massive processing facilities were converted into refugee centers and research stations where freed species could recover their cultures and plan their futures. Earth became the unofficial capital of the new Galactic Alliance, not because humans demanded leadership, but because other species recognized something unique in humanity's approach to interstellar relations. Where other civilizations had focused on their own advancement, humans consistently demonstrated a willingness to fight for the freedom of beings they had never met. Dr. Lydia Chun established the Galactic Recovery Institute, dedicated to helping rescued species rebuild their civilizations and document their histories. Her research team from Echo 7 became the core of a growing organization that would spend centuries cataloging the knowledge and culture that the collectors had tried to destroy. Admiral Stone retired from active military service, but remained as the head of the Galactic Defense Council, ensuring that the Alliance would be prepared if another threat like the collectors ever emerged. The hidden fleets that had awakened to answer Echo 7's distress call became the foundation of a permanent peacekeeping force. But perhaps the most important change was philosophical. The galaxy had learned that freedom was not a luxury that could be enjoyed in isolation. It was a responsibility that required constant vigilance and the willingness to stand up for those who could not stand up for themselves. The single SOS signal from Research Station Echo 7 had awakened more than just Earth's hidden military. It had awakened the galaxy's conscience, proving that sometimes the most important battles are fought not for conquest or glory, but simply because it is the right thing to do. Years later, when new species made first contact with the Galactic Alliance, they would often ask why Earth was called a death world. The answer was always the same, not because it had produced the most dangerous predators in the galaxy, but because it had produced predators who used their strength to protect rather than to exploit. The children of Earth had learned that true apex predators don't hunt the weak. They hunt the things that prey on the weak. And across the galaxy, on worlds that had been free for generations, parents would tell their children the story of the single signal that reached Earth and woke the sleeping giant. The story of how humanity answered the call, not because they had to, but because when someone asks for help, the right response is always the same. You answer. You come. You fight, you win, and you make sure it never happens again.